Last month, the Supreme Court of the United States issued in a 5-4 vote a ruling that overturned restrictions on the flow of corporate money into the political system, upholding corporations' ability to influence elections and, by extension, influence public policy.
But what the Supreme Court did today is overturn a century of laws and practice in America, taking the restrictions away, saying that corporations can use their vast treasuries to spend money to support or oppose candidates in political campaigns.
The ruling rested on the premise that corporations are persons with constitutional rights, that contributing money to a political campaign is a form of speech, and that therefore limiting a corporation's right to flood the political marketplace with money would be an unconstitutional infringement on free speech. But are corporations people?
They do everything people do except breathe, die, and go to jail for dumping 1.3 million pounds of PCBs into the Hudson River.
Most people understand that democracy is for citizens, for real-life human beings. Most people understand that corporations are not people. And yet, the United States Supreme Court in the Citizens United case has now just determined that private for-profit corporations are citizens armed with political rights.
And more importantly, is a large corporation financing a political agenda a form of speech when it takes power away from everyday people to have their voices heard equally? A corporation is simply a group of people who share a common interest and have come together to pursue that interest, which is more likely than not to make a profit for themselves. Nothing wrong with that, is there?
Of course they make a profit, and it's a good thing. That's the incentive that makes capitalism work, to give us more of the things that we need.
However, it gets complicated when profits are positively or negatively affected by decisions made in the area of public policy, something all Americans are at least ideally supposed to have an equal voice in deciding. When that happens, a corporation's primary concern is no longer to make money, but to influence and sculpt the political system in order to make it as conducive as possible to its secondary interest, which is still profit. The corporate entity, especially in its most powerful and expansive incarnations, will always be more influential than the everyday American. American citizens simply don't have the resources to do what corporations do. Your neighbor is not going to be able to contribute enough money to a congressman's campaign to influence his opinion on a certain issue. Your co-workers don't have the means to hire lobbyists like the kind Obama has welcomed into his administration to go to Capitol Hill and influence the political establishment to cater to their interests. The corporations do. The Bill of Rights was written to protect the rights of the masses, the everyday American, not the legal entity that is a corporation. Their role in society is limited to the marketplace and not public policy. The First Amendment was never intended to protect the interests of corporations. But because of the Supreme Court's decision, which, as corrupt as our nation has become, could be seen simply as a formality, the large corporations will always have the upper hand, as they've always had when it comes to shaping public policy. This is especially dangerous when coupled with the false belief that rooting for a corporation is some form of nationalism, and that what's good for the corporation is good for America. Why wouldn't the major corporations want to use their enormous resources to influence the politics of a nation? And why shouldn't we band together to stop them from stealing our voices? There's a word for when big business controls big government. It's called fascism.